One thing that's important, I think, to understand is there is no one machine-to-machine, one unified, single, homogeneous machine-to-machine market. It's already stratified. One way to think about it is in terms of asset value. I mean, so there are relatively inexpensive devices that could talk to each other or maybe already do, through an entire spectrum up to very expensive things that have lots of sensors and where the communication, in other words, the cheap device, the communication cost, or the radio, may be a substantial portion of the cost. And in the really high value assets, it's trivial. And one thing, the other thing to consider is the not having standards is a barrier to getting started unless you control enough of an ecosystem to say, okay, well, who cares? We'll just make all our devices talk to each other, and then we'll figure out the standards and participate as they evolve. And that's what GE, that's sort of the priority sort that GE did, which is which ecosystems are we part of where we can control substantial high-value assets and at least make them talk to each other and do something interesting and valuable, and then encourage other people to participate. Oddly, currently, I don't think we think about the standards, but in terms of the projects that we're doing, it has more to do with getting the data and the rights to the data, so from a customer. We just assume we'll get it. It's more into legality now than anything else. So for some analytic services that we're doing around jet engines, it's United Airlines engine. I'm just making this example up. But as part of our relationship, we share the data, the sensor data that's coming off of the engine that we built that they bought. And they're also sharing all the other data, at least substantial portions of the data that's coming from the rest of the airframe that the engine is attached to. So that's a lot of interesting data sets if you have access to them, because you can make interesting conclusions about, you can change the amount of fuel that something burns to get from point A to point B. You can plug into someone's flight operations and change when an aircraft arrives to maybe make that more efficient. And you can start to look at a larger system level. So instead of just one engine on one plane, you start talking to the guy who runs flight operations for Alaska Airlines. He's got to worry about where everything is that night when they sort of temporarily stop operations, and then how to reorganize those assets in the morning. That's a different problem than is one engine going to misbehave in about a week from now. This is a different kind of operations research problem. So there are trends in machine to machine, and we're sort of taking them as they come and trying to sort through those. We're very interested in machine learning, but I'd also say broadly applied. So there's a trend. Today, data science is done by artisans that handcraft solutions at every step in the workflow, generally using custom tools or at least discrete tools from different vendors. And it's a very artisanal process, and there are trends to make better tools for those people and to automate more of the process, because there is a bit of a throughput problem. Each time we make a different SKU of a jet engine, I keep using that as an example, the signals that it throws off that we want to pay attention to are slightly different. And so we have to re-characterize it again, and that's a problem that machine learning can address, but it's how you apply the machine learning to the whole process of trying to figure out what the signals are telling you.
As an OEM, would you open up the data to a third-party developer or even one of your customers' developers, like all of the machine data that you have in your own proprietary protocols and things of that nature, or?
Look at that smile.
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
We could.
Probably varies by.
The right question is probably, when would we choose to do that? Because it's a good thing for our customers. How's that for politically correct? We certainly thought about that, and it really comes down to, when is it right to have the third-party developer program to invite, or essentially trusted partners to leverage the data that is in there on behalf of the customer. Usually it's going to be the customer first. Right, so it's the customer's big data or data scientists who also want access to some of either the raw data or the halfway processed data for their own benefit, in addition to what we're telling them. So we could. I think it's a business decision rather than a technical one.
Great, good, thank you. So, Mike, since your company is in so many different verticals, in those different verticals, do you see each of them building, let's say like manufacturing or healthcare, do you see building their own solutions, or are they buying software, or are they buying
Yes.
consulting services, or are they embracing cloud services, or all of the above?
Yes. Yes, literally, all of those. I was at a conference last week where an internal conference, many funny things were said, but the one quote I remember was somebody, I think the CTO of our healthcare division said, "We're the Noah's Ark of software and services. If we don't already have one thing, we'll get the other one, so we have two of them to get on the ark and have two of everything." Listen, what I've learned about General Electric is it is a humongous company, really a collection of large companies, and each of them has agendas, but all of them have a big data agenda now. Every single division, business unit. And so how they pursue that on behalf of their customers is not mandated. It's just sort of, we give them lots of platforms and lots of tools and lots of hand-holding and consulting, and they're very receptive to that. But I think they're all operating at their own pace and rapidly trying to bring things to, I mean, they already do, we do predict unscheduled maintenance, and we do interesting things with MRI machines that we just don't talk about them that much. And what we're trying to do across the company is help each of those business units upgrade their game, so that they can be more competitive in the market. So yes, it's not just one thing, it's sort of a free-for-all across the board. We're just trying to, the group that I'm associated with, the GE Software Group in San Ramon, is trying to coordinate that so that the impact is more impactful.
Right.
Give people a platform. You could go ahead and build your own big data stack if you want, or you could tear this one off the sheet and come to market a lot sooner. And so what I've observed is maybe general managers in different divisions getting very competitive about how quickly they can bring things to market and launch things, which is a sort of good competition.
Right, right. But the solutions that they're looking at are still pretty much vertically focused, true?
Well,
Right, within
in
the
order to be
healthcare.
solutions, yes.
Right, right.
Yeah. So they're very tailored for the market, but
Right.
they all often have very similar characteristics.
Right.
So, I don't mean this to be a commercial, but the thing there's a platform that the group in San Ramon is building. It's a cloud-based platform as a service, which is a large collection of analytics and services that business units can use to build applications on top of and then customize for airlines in the case of aviation, or hospital groups in the case of healthcare. And at some level, there are some basic building blocks that are very useful, and it's stupid to recreate the wheel. So you're trying to create a platform that lots of people can use at the corporate level.
Oh, great, good. Gerd, you're in a similar situation, right? Because Siemens has so many different sectors that it addresses. How do you do it?
Well, we're a little bit smaller than GE, but we still apply copy and paste. The approach in Siemens is very, very similar to what we just heard about GE. So the product groups have a lot of independence. So they ultimately make the decision on what they want to use, how they want to take that to market. At the same time, we try to leverage synergies, so we don't want to reinvent the wheel all over again all the time. We still do it way too often, but we want to reduce that. So big data has become a corporate initiative, which is driven by out of corporate research. But what does it really mean? There's a lot of situations where there already is a legacy, some installed base from somewhere, and you cannot just forget about that and kind of start all over again. That's one of the things, a company with 160 some years of history has a lot of legacy, and we have to deal with that. We cannot abandon that. So that quite often forces the product decision in a certain way. Another one, off the record, it's always good to say we want to standardize, but then the question is, who becomes the business owner of that? And when you say who wants to be the business owner and people think of revenue, you see 20 hands go up. When you say, well, but business ownership also comes with a support obligation, and you have to deal with integration issues, and you have to sort out how we internally work it out, and what's the business model internally, and all of a sudden most of the hands are gone. That's just the reality. So you will see multiple solutions coming out of a large industrial conglomerate like a Siemens. I think that's just the reality.
Great, thank you. You know, the audience, do you have any questions you want to pose of the panel now related to this topic? Anyone? Yes?
It's always me. So all of you do big data. Going into the details a little bit, do you all use platforms like Hadoop, or do you have your own MapReduce type of technologies that you have developed in-house, or do you buy things like Big Insights from IBM or Cloudera? What platforms do you run your big data stuff on?
We don't use IBM.
You don't use IBM?
I can start, since I'm the left-hand guy again. Sort of like my answer before about being the Noah's Ark of some software technologies, that we use many of the same open source inspired, literally open source distributions that you're familiar with. But of course, we're building services that we have to actually have service level agreements on, and it has to be, in some cases, we anticipate controlling real industrial infrastructure. So there's some very real risks associated with security. And so we have to take what's available, and that's the stuff that you build big data solutions out of today is a rapidly evolving field. And you have to take what's there to move fast. You have to keep up with it as it rapidly evolves. And you have to also extend it to make it commercially viable for whatever your intent to deploy it is. But we're not really going to reinvent the wheel if we don't have to.
We're using a hybrid of SQL and big data. We have to use SQL. In fact, actually, one of the things we invented was we invented a way to sort of get an SQL database out to its absolute utter edge of performance in a multi-tenant architecture across theoretically thousands of servers. There's a big part of what we do, mainly because, as Mike mentioned, there's a lot of really high-value assets that are out there that are monitoring machines. We do, for example, we have some tomato harvesters out in the Central Valley that cost $500,000 a piece, and if we order a whole brand new shipment of diesel fuel for that tomato harvester, it has to be like a bank-grade transaction. So we have to do a lot of things in a SQL store. That being said, we also have a kind of a neutralization layer where we run Cassandra, but we can plug the whole system into Mongo, Redis, anything else pretty much that comes along. We're looking at NeoDB right now because that's pretty fascinating technology that just came out. And this kind of gets back to actually my machine learning point, is we're installing some stuff out at the edge that can analyze messages in memory basically and figure out where do we stuff them. Is this a low value message that we stuff into a large NoSQL store is a high-value message that someone's gonna make a financial decision on, let's put it in SQL.